print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Laura, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the July 5th issue of the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Jordyn Woods' lucky bag is now on display at the Guggenheim. The orange clutch carried by Woods, who is engaged to the Knicks center Karl Anthony Towns, became a talisman for the team's NBA championship victory through memes and social media chatter. By Yola Mizizi. It has been credited with bringing the Knicks its first NBA championship final win in 53 years. It has been blessed by New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. It even enjoyed the VIP treatment at a celebratory parade. It is now going to be exhibited at the Guggenheim Museum. Jordyn Woods' $125 orange faux ostrich leather clutch bag has become a talisman for Knicks fans and players, many of whom credit it for buoying the basketball team to victory. Woods, who is engaged to the Knicks center Karl Anthony Towns, wore the purse to all but one of the games in the lead up to the finals on June 13th. On the days she brought the bag, which is from her own label, Woods by Jordyn, the Knicks won. The day the team broke its winning streak was, coincidentally, the day that Madison Square Garden implemented a strict no-bag policy and heightened security for President Trump's attendance. The bag did its thing tonight, Towns said in a video he shared on Instagram, referring to the team's Game 4 win. "We got to put this in the Whitney or the Guggenheim," he added. The Guggenheim was happy to oblige. The museum is displaying the bag in its halls for 5 days, starting on Wednesday, running through next Monday. The bag will be exhibited at the museum's Café Rebay, said Mariette Westerman, the director and chief executive of the Guggenheim Museum. This bag came to represent a cultural moment, Westerman said. When you think about what museums do, we collect the works that often play those roles, or begin to play it much after they were created, like the Mona Lisa. The goal is to attract visitors, especially teenagers, who might not spend their afternoon in an art museum, said Westerman. A representative for Woods declined requests for an interview and pointed to a news release. The purse, named Tux Clutch Mini, is hardly the first fashion item to gain cultural cachet for being a lucky charm for athletes and their teams. Michael Jordan famously wore practice shorts from his days at the University of North Carolina under his Chicago Bulls uniform for good luck, as he led the team to 6 NBA championships. Tiger Woods leaned on superstition by wearing red shirts on Sundays, which quickly became associated with his victories. He even parlayed the tradition into a fashion brand, Sunday Red. But this particular lucky charm came from Woods, 28, a testament to the growing visibility and influence of wives and girlfriends of sports stars, or WAGs, as they've become called in popular culture. Earlier in her career, Woods walked as a fashion model for Christian Siriano and Chromat runway shows. She also appeared frequently in the reality series Keeping Up with the Kardashians and the spin-off Life of Kylie as a friend of Kylie Jenner. Woods had a public falling out with the family in 2019 after reports of an affair between herself and Tristan Thompson, the father of Khloe Kardashian's children. Jenner and Woods seem to have reconciled, and Jenner has also become a courtside fixture at the Knicks games. In 2023, Woods launched her shoe and accessory line, Woods by Jordyn. The brand is Woods' latest fashion venture, after she'd founded Secondture, a size-inclusive activewear label, in 2018. The purse, which retails for $125, is currently sold out on the brand's website and is only available for pre-order. The purse's urban legend has been bolstered by memes and jokes on social media and has reached people beyond the Knicks fan base, like Jasmine Creer, 35, a stay-at-home mother and content creator based in Los Angeles. We didn't need the stamp of approval that it was a moment in history, a defining moment for her brand, said Creer, who is a fan of the Los Angeles Lakers, regarding its display at the Guggenheim. I would buy the bag, she said, but not in orange. Sick of swiping, some daters would rather sweat together. A slew of new apps focus on connecting people who love to work out. By Danielle Friedman. To get ready for their date, Nicole Ho and DC Banks stretched, hydrated, and each ate a banana. They were meeting for the first time, just minutes before competing together as a mixed doubles team in High Rocks, a popular fitness race. For the next hour and 13 minutes, the couple ran laps side by side and took turns doing rigorous strength exercises, signaling when they needed the other to step in. At the end, flushed and sweaty, Mr. Banks, 32, and Ms. Ho, 31, exchanged numbers, mutually impressed. At a fitness event like High Rocks, there's no faking it, Mr. Banks said, a few days after the race. You're in fight or flight, and you're just going with it. Ms. Ho agreed. You can't hide when you're suffering, she said. You're huffing and puffing. You don't look cute, she added. The couple met through Surf, the official dating app partner of High Rocks, and one of a slew of new dating apps designed to connect people who like to work out. There's also Leg Day, which went live in May and allows singles to meet while they are at the same gym. There's A-Team, which bills itself as the official dating app of wellness and asks prospective users, "You're high-performing? Are your relationships?" These apps rely on the premise that people who devote time and energy to fitness share values and interests beyond raising their heart rate. They also all aim to help users meet in person as quickly as possible, pitching themselves as antidotes to swipe fatigue. I am so over dating apps, Sam Makoff, 31, said, while drinking a mocktail at an A-Team post-workout mixer at a Soul Cycle in the West Village. She figured if she met a guy at a spin class, he would at least share her love of cardio, which was more than she could say for many of the people she'd matched with on swipe-based apps. Gary Lewandowski, a professor of psychology at Monmouth University who studies romantic relationships, said that while our online selves were highly curated, people are craving authenticity. Meeting for a run or a game of pickleball may reveal compatibility with someone much faster than weeks of messaging, he said. It's less makeup and more sweatpants. The concept of looking for love at the gym isn't new. In 1983, not long after health clubs became co-ed, a Rolling Stone cover story called gyms the new singles bars. But in the decades that followed, the culture and etiquette in most, though not all, gyms shifted. A greater diversity of people started going to the gym, and for reasons beyond looking fit, on the advice of their doctor, for example, or for their mental health. By 2006, an article in this paper reported that in most fitness spaces, the idea of the gym as a pickup spot is about as passé as neon pink leg warmers. But 20 years later, could a generational shift in how people socialize and spend their free time send the pendulum back in the other direction, minus the thong leotards and tiny track shorts? Gen Z is spending more time and money on fitness and less on alcohol and bars. And gyms are now a gathering place for more young people, said Alexandra Solomon, a therapist and adjunct professor at Northwestern University who specializes in intimate relationships. For those committed to their gym schedule, these apps might also have a logistical upside. A lot of love is chemistry and emotion, but a lot is, like coordinating two lives, Dr. Solomon said. But even in shared environments, people struggle to meet in real life today, she said. In a post, #MeTooWorld, she added, many people are hesitant to approach someone they don't know in public, and many people are leery of being approached. Enter apps designed to reduce the awkwardness of a gym meet-cute gone wrong. This is essential given that plenty of people still have no interest in mixing dating and exercise, Dr. Lewandowski said. Many people already feel self-conscious at the gym or consider exercise sacred time to themselves, and many women have been sexually harassed while working out. Having the ability to explicitly opt in can help people feel safe at the gym. Juanita Sayagan, 36, who does Hyrox races and runs marathons, said she had a rule of never dating people who go to her regular gym. If I mess it up, then I have to mess up my fitness routine, she said at the A-Team Mixer. She said she hoped fitness dating apps could help her meet someone who cared about being active as much as she did, ideally someone who worked out in another part of town. These apps allow users to choose exactly how and when they want to mix dating and fitness. At Hyrox events, users of the Surf app wear pink bracelets to signal that they're ready to mingle. A-Team hosts fitness-themed date nights for people looking to meet. We give you the upside of meeting someone at the gym without the downside of being off-putting, said Rob Long, the 38-year-old co-founder and chief executive of Surf. You can make the first step when it's appropriate on each other's own terms. Leg Day offers perhaps the most literal solution, at least in the 2 gym locations in Manhattan where it's currently available. The app's sole purpose is to help gym goers meet while they're in the same place, decreasing the chances that their gym crush will become the one that got away. It works by using geofencing. Leg Day's users can choose to make themselves visible only to specific members and indicate how they want to be approached, in person, via phone, or via Instagram. It's really just meant for that one moment where you want to start a conversation, but you don't want to go about it in the wrong way, said Hamilton Harler, who created the app with his college friend Nima Attar, both of whom are 25. Dr. Lewandowski sees value in this type of mutual consent. It's basically putting up this big green light on top of your head that says, you know, this is cool. It's cool to approach, he said. People who have a shared interest in the gym don't always have the same motivations for being there, said Dr. Solomon, which could present a hurdle for these apps. But even if your workout date is a dud, there can be benefits to meeting while in motion. Dr. Solomon said she had encouraged people to pick an activity that involves movement on a first date, because at the end of the day, we are all just a bunch of fancy mammals, you know? For many people, she said, sitting across from each other at a table can feel stifling. Plus, exercise triggers the release of feel-good chemicals, such as oxytocin, which helps with bonding, she said. For Ms. Ho and Mr. Banks, going on a date at Hyrox felt as if it gave them an opportunity to show off the best version of themselves, they said, despite all the sweat. Whatever happens next, though, the date was a success. They both got a great workout. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. When did bare nails become a status symbol? From a love story plotline to runways and streetwear, minimal or nude nails are everywhere. By Isha Sharma. In the opening scenes of FX's Love Story, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy is getting her nails done. Paparazzi press against the window, camera flashes reflecting off her trademark blonde hair, and freshly painted nails. A cherry polish that hums with defiance. It is the manicure of a woman who, not long ago, was an independent Calvin Klein publicist living on her own terms. But for this event, a Kennedy family wedding, she changes her mind. She looks down at her hands with a defeated expression and asks the nail technician to start over. Switch it to a neutral. Though the show, which was released this year, is set in the 1990s, the nude or minimal nail aesthetic has made it to runways and streetwear in 2026. Nail salons and polish brands have reported growing preferences for a nude and pink polish, while some people are skipping polish altogether. For some, the trend has become a rallying cry against complex beauty rituals. But for others, it's a way for the privileged few to show their wealth. In Love Story, the nude nails were seen as a better fit for a Kennedy function. Valeria Lipovetsky, an influencer, stopped doing her nails regularly 2 years ago. My life quality has improved substantially since I stopped doing my nails, she said in an interview, adding that she had more brain capacity and more time. The video she posted last year about her decision has been viewed more than 3 million times and has seen a resurgence in shares and views lately. Vivian Tu, a financial content creator who used to work at JP Morgan, was inspired to ditch her nail routine too. Sitting in a salon for 90 minutes does not feel like a good use of my time, she said. Convenience is part of the pitch that Katia Beauchamp is making. Keeping my nails bare gives me so much freedom to always feel ready, or minutes away from feeling ready, she said. Beauchamp, the former chief executive of Victoria Beckham Beauty and Birchbox co-founder, will be launching Buff Beauty, a brand built around the bare nail, this summer. The look has become a status symbol for everyone from influencers like Alex Earle, Paige Lorenz, and Tinks, who all wore it in recent weeks, to perennial it girls like Zoe Kravitz and the Olsen twins, to Marc Jacobs, who sent models down a runway this year with nude nails at New York Fashion Week. The manicurist, Jim Soon Choi, prepped models' nails backstage with nothing but cuticle oil and hand cream. Minutes before the show, Jacobs asked her to cut the nails even shorter. "I've been doing a lot of minimalistic, natural, healthy-looking nails," she said. Primp and Polish, a nail salon with 4 locations in Brooklyn, said roughly half of its clients now request natural or neutral styles, which is a reversal from a year ago, when about 70% of clients requested bolder colors and more complex, colorful designs. Though nudes and pinks have long been popular, Isabel Marlowe, director of color design and product development for Essie, said, "This year we really saw the popularity of sheer and semi-sheer soft pinks and milky neutrals grow." The nude nail trend, paradoxically, does not necessarily mean skipping the salon. There are the barely there options that Choi calls the invisible French manicure. And there are also nail treatments, such as nail strengtheners, cuticle oils, and serums, a market that is projected to reach $5.1 billion by 2030, according to Grandview Research. Pristine, unpainted hands have long signaled a life of leisure. It is a lineage of restraint that stretches from royal protocols to the waspy settings that Love Story depicted. In recent years, as the clean girl aesthetic grew, minimal nails have become increasingly popular. But while social media and Starbucks have been exalting bare nails, commenters have been quick to point out classism and exclusion. Like the clean girl aesthetic, it can be another way to subtly counter-signal. People want to create the illusion that they are not putting in hours of work, said Christina Rodolfo, a beauty editor and writer for the newsletter Pearl. Critics also argued that elevating the bare nail meant looking down on elaborate nail art traditions rooted in Black and immigrant communities. It's respectability politics at the end of the day, and black women know this, said Cynthia Robinson, who owns Cure Nail House in Detroit. We've been dealing with this our entire lives. We've been told our hair, nails, bodies, clothes are too much. She also emphasized that salons are about more than beauty. Nail salons, she said, can be spaces where culture is protected and passed down. When we decide that these spaces don't matter, she said, we lose rooms where women survive and take care of each other. Omoya Okamoto, a Japanese-Taiwanese New York-based nail artist whose Smithsonian collaboration explored nail art through the lens of Asian American history, also saw the elevation of neutral nails as a kind of erasure. The labeling of self-expression as trashy or lower class is that exact same reason why people label braids as unprofessional or your food as stinky, she said. Like beauty, effort is in the eye of the beholder. As Robinson put it, effortless to me means showing up as yourself. It's honoring myself, my legacy, my culture. To beat the heat, the wealthy are building snow rooms. Indoors for a fortunate few, it's always a winter wonderland. By Guy Trebay. On a recent Tuesday, the heat index in Frisco, Texas spiked above 100 degrees. While asphalt bubbled beneath a scorching sun, Caitlin Shebler was relaxing on a bench in a room that resembled a stylish meat locker. Swaddled in a robe, mimosa in hand, she was writing in her journal under a gentle snowfall. It's a nice storm, not a blizzard, Shebler, a co-owner of a high-end spa, said by phone from her custom indoor igloo. Something you'd want to enjoy. To the list of improbable follies now available for the wealthy, let us add the snow room. As the changing climate wreaks havoc on our four seasons, some people with means are fashioning their own. They are equipping their homes, and even their yachts, with indoor winter wonderlands, aided by companies like the Italian snowmaker Tecno Alpin, which blasts snow onto ski mountains, and an American company, the Spa Butler. A snow room is more or less the opposite of a sauna, a cave-like space of ice and snow. In some, white flakes descend gently from the ceiling to create the feeling of being inside a snow globe. In recent years, these frosty cold rooms have become a choice amenity for those atop economic Everest. The petrochemical billionaire Mukesh Ambani had one installed in Antilia, the skyscraper in Mumbai, India, that his family calls home. The 440-foot super yacht Serene, owned by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, also has one. A decade ago, when the technology to create indoor snow was in its beta phase, snow rooms were a novelty flex for the ultra-rich. Sarah Brenninger, a Tecno Alpin marketing director, said the company had to learn how a snow cannon could be used in different ways. It turned out that blasting a slurry of frozen water and compressed air onto a ski run is one thing. Transforming part of a home or a boat cabin into a miniature tundra is quite another. We had to learn at this early stage not only how to create snow indoors, but how to cool down the ambience, how the snow stays there, Brenninger said. In devising the snow room aboard the Serene, the designer Pascal Raymond took style cues from the yacht's owner at the time, the liquor magnate Yuri Scheffler, who was said to have wanted a reminder of his sub-zero homeland in the uplands of central Russia. Whether this Dr. Zhivago feature sold Bill Gates on the boat is unknown, but he did once fork over a reported $5 million per week to charter the yacht for a family outing. Upgrades to the Serene's snow room were undertaken when the yacht was acquired by the Saudi prince, who reportedly keeps it chilled to 12 degrees Fahrenheit and had it programmed to produce snow showers at a computerized queue. These days, snow rooms are becoming routine offerings in shipyard sales rooms, said Kevin Kramer, a broker at Burgess Yachts in Aspen, Colorado. Back in the day, yacht design was all about drinking and partying and lots of bars, he said. Now the focus is very much on fitness and longevity. Snow rooms, he added, are in line with a broader spa trend favored alternating hot and cold therapy. An ice plunge has a smaller footprint and is a much easier thing to engineer, Kramer said. But snow rooms are a form of one-upping at the tippy top. Gradually, and perhaps inevitably, snow rooms have lately made their way into the lives of anyone willing to spend $130,000 or more to create a scene from Bambi in their own homes. Scores have already been built or are under construction across the United States, said Tyler Slater, a co-founder of the Spa Butler in Plano, Texas. We do them in rock, luxury marble, wood, whatever you can imagine, he said. The Spa Butler created their snow room for Caitlin Shebler and her husband John at their spa in Frisco. We're currently working with a gentleman in Ohio who wanted a snow room with rugged features, split logs and wood, the rustic look, Slater said. Basically, we can produce any fantasy you want. Think of it as Disneyland with snow. Chanel is buying the world's oldest shirt maker. The French luxury group is acquiring Charvet, a Parisian brand that dates back to the 1830s, in a bid to add some menswear savoir-faire to its portfolio. By Vanessa Friedman. Chanel has designs on men, if not menswear exactly. The French luxury brand announced on Thursday that it had acquired Charvet, the storied Place Vendôme maison known for its bespoke shirts, ties, and pajamas. Terms of the deal were not disclosed. Now we have a name, Chanel, for women and a name for men, Charvet. Bruno Pavlovsky, the president of fashion at Chanel, said in a video interview. Even if Chanel is about women, we see more men coming in, he continued. And even if Charvet is mostly about men, we see a lot of women going there to have shirts made. It's up to the client. Everyone is welcome. That's the beauty and the secret of the approach. The acquisition reflects what Pavlovsky sees as a new gender-agnostic approach among its customers. Indeed, he said, it might even herald the beginning of haute couture for men. Chanel has already put its money where its theory is, signing ASAP Rocky and Pedro Pascal as brand ambassadors, though the company does not have a dedicated menswear line, or, Pavlovsky said, any plans to create one. With the addition of Charvet, it has doubled down on the idea. It can afford to. Chanel reported revenues of $19.3 billion and an operating profit of $4.7 billion in 2025. It is one of the bright spots in the luxury sector, thanks to the buzz around the designer Matthew Blasi, who was appointed the company's artistic director in December 2024. His first collections have created shopping frenzies in Paris, London, and Shanghai. The world's first dedicated shirt shop, Charvet was founded in 1838 by Joseph Christophe Charvet, the son of Napoleon's dresser, and family-owned until 1965, when the Charvets sold the company to Dennis Colban, then their fabric supplier. It is now run by Colban's children, Jean-Claude and Anne-Marie. Charvet's shirts have been memorialized in such books as Proust's In Search of Lost Time and Tom Wolfe's A Man in Full. King Edward was a loyal customer and awarded Charvet a royal warrant, a rarity for a non-British brand. Other fans have included Gary Cooper, John F. Kennedy, Charles de Gaulle, David Hockney, and Sofia Coppola, as well as the former Chanel designer Karl Lagerfeld, who, Pavlovsky said, gave him some Charvet shirts as a present. Chanel's relationship with the house began just under a century ago, when Coco Chanel started borrowing the, yes, Charvet, shirts of her boyfriend, the British shipping merchant and polo player Boy Capel. The arrangement was formalized last October when Blasi, inspired by Coco's style, collaborated with the brand on a trio of shirts for his first collection. Nicole Kidman wore one to sit front row. Jacob Elordi modeled another a few weeks later. The attention thrust at Charvet into the spotlight, and Pavlovsky said, got Jean-Claude and Anne-Marie Colbin, 71 and 69, thinking about the brand's future. None of their children work in the business. The sale to Chanel was their idea, Pavlovsky said. Charvet has estimated revenues of 10 million to 15 million euros a year, approximately $11 million to $17 million, according to Luca Solca, a luxury analyst at Bernstein. Its assets include 100 employees, an atelier outside Paris, and one store, the building on Place Vendôme, which Chanel has also acquired. Solca put its value at 100 million euros, or $114 million. The brand's reputation far exceeds its physical footprint. British Vogue called Charvet shirts the ultimate staple for those with a reverence for quality basics and a disregard for price tags, adding that the brand itself had been elevated to near religious status among fashion insiders. When you look at the different top brands or top houses in Paris, you don't have many gems, Pavlovsky said. This one is a gem. As an additional enticement, he noted, Charvet's made-to-measure service and approach to fabric and finishing were similar to those of Chanel. For example, he said, there is not one blue at Charvet. There are 500 blues. The brand will not become part of the Chanel group of Maison d'Art, which, as the embroiderer Lesage and the goldsmith Gossens have. Like other Chanel-owned names, including Ayres, Olibar, Brown, and Barry, it will be run as a standalone company. The Colbans will stay on for at least a year to ensure a smooth transition. Pavlovsky said that a Charvet show was unlikely in the future, but at some point he acknowledged a dedicated creative director would be hired. Expect the job speculation to begin now. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times Style section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. America, one line at a time. The United States was written into being. Now, 250 years after the Declaration of Independence, we look at 6 sentences that shaped the American story, taken from a founding document, an incendiary speech, a classic autobiography, an inaugural address, a protest song, and a baseball cap. Are women persons? Susan B. Anthony, 1873. Does all men are created equal include women? By Parul Sehgal. On November 5th, 1872, in Rochester, New York, 15 American women left their homes to commit a crime. Their leader, a woman in her 50s with a famously cool, unwavering gaze, was arrested later that month. She denied nothing, and in a statement to the judge at her trial the following year, exhorted other women to join her. Do precisely as I have done. Rebel against your man-made, unjust, unconstitutional forms of law. The arrest of Susan B. Anthony for casting a ballot worked precisely as she and her fellow suffragists had intended, generating publicity and a test case for the movement. Anthony went on a speaking tour before the trial, declaring that the time for patience was over. She quoted from the 14th Amendment, enjoining her listeners to scrutinize its language and its logic. And then she put things quite simply. The only question left to be settled now is, are women persons? This is blunt and bracing. The last word especially catches the ear. Anthony says persons rather than people because she's using the precise terms of the Constitution. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. If women like Anthony were persons, then they were also citizens. And if they were citizens, then no state laws, such as New York's, should abridge their privileges or immunities, such as the right to vote. This was a crucial point in the case Anthony was making, but it had much broader ramifications. The fight for women's suffrage was one of the longest and toughest in American history. It met ferocious opposition from liquor lobbyists who feared that newly enfranchised women would vote for prohibition, from industrialists who believed that they would argue for child labor laws, and from anti-suffrage women themselves, a large and mighty constituency. Are women persons? The judge in Anthony's case acknowledged that they were citizens, but he ruled that voting was not one of the privileges or immunities of U.S. citizenship. He directed the jury to find her guilty. Even so, the ruling hardly settled the question. Suffragists attacked it from various angles. In the early 20th century, the novelist Alice Duer Miller published a satirical suffrage column and a book called Are Women People? In a famous speech from 1851, Sojourner Truth spoke out. I have plowed and reaped and husked and chopped and mowed, and can any man do more than that? I have heard much about the sexes being equal. I can carry as much as any man, and can eat as much too. The suffrage movement played out in the streets, through public protests and hunger strikes, but also through the shrewd, close reading of America's founding documents. Suffragists became experts on how language holds and reveals social hypocrisies. In the speeches Anthony gave before her trial, she pointed out that the Federal Enforcement Act of 1870, which she had so proudly violated, exclusively used masculine pronouns, as did the printed forms pertaining to her case. The record of her conviction would have to be amended by hand, an S jotted beside he to make it into she, and so on. She said, I insist if government officials may thus manipulate the pronouns to tax, fine, imprison, and hang women, women may take the same liberty with them to secure to themselves their right to a voice in the government. She invoked New York tax laws that referred to only he, him, and his, and yet weren't taxes collected from women? The suffrage movement appropriated the great credo of the American Revolution, no taxation without representation, and pointed out that American women had continued to pay taxes without any say in the laws that governed their lives. Perhaps the most famous example of this kind of rereading occurred on July 19, 1848, when a group gathered to discuss the social, civil, and religious condition of woman at what became known as the Seneca Falls Convention. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and others drafted a Declaration of Sentiments, which rewrote the central argument of the Declaration of Independence. All men and women are created equal. Suffragists were keenly conscious of making history in the moment. Anthony and Stanton kept extensive archives. Anthony's own collection threatened to collapse the attic of her home, and they produced a contemporaneous amount of tactics and triumphs in what grew to be the 6-volume History of Women's Suffrage, published between 1881 and 1922. In the century since, scholars have shown how much that official narrative omitted and obscured. It neglected the contributions of rival feminist factions and of black suffragists, and it ignored how a movement that grew out of abolitionism tipped into racism, as Stanton rallied against black men getting the vote before white women. A larger, more expansive story can be told. Rather than holding Seneca Falls as our starting point, we might recognize other earlier milestones. For instance, when Maria W. Stewart, a black activist, became one of the first American women to speak about politics and women's rights to mixed audiences at her public lectures in the 1830s. We must acknowledge that the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920 mainly enfranchised white women. Many black, indigenous, and immigrant women would be denied for years or decades. For them, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was the more meaningful legislation. A wider aperture allows us to see not only concealed divisions, but also profound continuities. The suffrage movement had powerful bonds with other social causes, even global ones. It nurtured 3 generations of activists. One of Anthony's most popular speeches in the 1870s was "Woman wants bread, not the ballot," her case for appealing to women as a laboring class. They lobbied for married women to inherit property, to petition for divorce, to have custody of their children, to speak in public. The mark of personhood, for Anthony and others, was not granted by the vote, but exercised through it, the freedom and ability to make meaningful choices. Suffragists reread the story of American independence, pored over our founding documents, and litigated the assumptions logged in words as simple as person. Historians continued their work, conducting their own scrupulous critique of the documents and narratives passed down. For this young country, the obligation and opportunity to revise has been our steadiest inheritance, a bequest of the Constitution itself, with its famous invocation of a more perfect union, reminding us that we are ever a work in progress, ever evolving. Social cues. How do I stop guests from bringing their children to my parties? A reader is frustrated by the handful of friends who assume their children are welcome at events to which they are not explicitly invited. By Philip Gaines. Some people in my social circle bring their young children to all social events, whether the children are invited or not. I used to state explicitly on invitations when guests were welcome to bring children, other friends, or dates. I assumed that when I didn't use that language, guests would understand that only those named on the invitation were invited. I stopped making that assumption because of the small number of people who bring their children to everything. I can plan a pleasant evening, but guests don't get to enjoy it because they are conscripted into providing free childcare or forced to be an audience to performances by children throughout the evening. Is there a gracious way to tell these so-called friends that if I don't invite their children, they should not bring them? Host. As a host, you are absolutely entitled to create the guest list for your parties. But what a shame to let a misunderstanding, or at worst an error in judgment by a few parents, so embitter you, so that you call guests whom you invite to your home as so-called friends, and accuse them of trying to scam their way into some free childcare. We all make mistakes. I understand you're annoyed, but isn't it more likely that these parents have misconstrued your occasional inclusion of children to be a regular thing? Or that they simply assumed incorrectly that their children were welcome? Both alternatives seem more reasonable to me than expecting guests to remember the language of your prior invitations for comparison. Try to be more generous. These are people you like, right? What's more, you can solve this problem with just a few spoken words. To me, that seems preferable to fuming or to adding more language to your invitations. Simply call the small number of parents with whom you've had this problem and say, "I wanted to tell you that the party is for adults only. I hope you can make it." They may not. Childcare can be expensive and difficult to arrange, but that's their decision to make after you have made the terms of your invitation to them abundantly clear. A crippling case of Uberphobia. We are retired seniors of limited means. Our next-door neighbors, lovely people and valued friends, are at least 20 years younger than we are. Recently, they have begun taking extravagant vacations, and twice they have asked us to drive them to the airport. We've done it, though it isn't easy for us. It's an hour-long round-trip drive. Traffic is often heavy and parking is difficult in our busy neighborhood. I'm sure they can afford a taxi or car service to the airport. How can we decline the request without having to concoct any excuses? Neighbor. I think you have your answer to this question already. You gave it to me in your perfectly reasonable letter. The drive to the airport is too much for you. The amount of driving, the heavy traffic, and the difficult parking are more than you can manage. And bonus, that's a totally fair response. For what it's worth, I have never been asked, or asked anyone else as an adult, for a ride to the airport. It's a hassle, and the cost of getting there should be part of your neighbor's vacation budget. The Wingfield Method. Our adult daughter is in a serious relationship with a man she claims loves and adores her. We have little confidence in their future together for various reasons, and we worry about the heartache our daughter will feel if they call it quits. What can we do other than be supportive and host them graciously when they come to visit? Our daughter has serious health issues, and we worry that this boyfriend is not in it for the long haul. Mom. I have no doubt that you want the best for your daughter, but I am also certain that the Glass Menagerie is not a play on which you should model your parenting. Your adult daughter's health challenges do not give you license to infantilize her or to second-guess her decisions. I have no way of evaluating your skepticism of her relationship based as it is on unstated reasons. But I note that your daughter has not asked either of us for help. In the absence of a serious issue, in the relationship, stay out of this. For help with your awkward situation, send a question to socialq@nytimes.com. Modern Love. What we found after he was gone. Jeff was Billy's friend and my lover. Was he also Cupid? By Elizabeth Laura Nelson. I was on the train to the emergency room on a sweltering June morning when my phone lit up with a text from an unfamiliar number. "Hi, this is Billy. I'm a longtime friend of Jeff's." Jeff had been my best friend for many years. He'd been my lover for less than a week. 3 days earlier, we had been holding hands under a clear Los Angeles sky, jacaranda trees blooming riotously above us. Jeff had just been discharged from Cedars-Sinai Hospital, and I had been daydreaming about a new life together. Now we were in Brooklyn, and Jeff was back in the hospital, struggling to breathe. Why had I let him alone overnight? And who was Billy? I didn't remember Jeff ever mentioning him. "I was hoping we can communicate so I can help," Billy wrote. The gravity of Jeff's illness, which I had been trying so hard to float above, pulled me towards the ground. I told Billy I would keep him posted. "Thanks, Elizabeth," he replied. "You're already my hero for going to California and bringing him home." His hero. When Jeff had told me he was sure his cancer had returned, I told him to quit being dramatic. I was no one's hero. The train lurched forward. One more stop. My phone vibrated. Billy again. I didn't realize he was on the mend. When they released him in L.A., I thought he was getting better. I bristled. He was. He is. He wasn't. 5 mornings later, I was the one lighting up Billy's phone. "He's gone," I texted. "Thank you so much for all you've done these last few days." In the last week of Jeff's life, Billy had become my lifeline, showing up to give rides, hugs, and support after I brought Jeff home for the final time. In a burst of energy the day before he died, Jeff said he wanted to make one more pasta dish, and the three of us shared a last meal, balancing bowls of spaghetti on our laps as if our world wasn't ending. That night, as I lay next to Jeff, panicked at the thought that he might not wake up, I called Billy. His calm voice soothed me to sleep. Over the next weeks, Billy and I occasionally emerged from our grief to check on each other. He kept seeing Jeff in people on the street. I couldn't stop scrolling through photos. "Send me a pic every day until you've sent them all," Billy texted. I had taken more pictures of Jeff, but Billy had known him longer. They'd been work collies years before, something Jeff had surely told me and I'd forgotten. One lonely day I asked Billy if he'd like to get coffee or take a walk. "I'd love to," he answered. "How about brunch tomorrow?" Billy lived in Queens, but he traveled to Brooklyn to meet me at a favorite neighborhood haunt of Jeff's and mine. Billy and I didn't waste time on pleasantries. I confessed to my icy silence toward Jeff in the months before he died, and how the long burning ember between us had finally burst into flame, though I used decidedly less poetic language. "Sorry to be graphic," I said with a laugh. "I don't mind," said Billy. "I don't have anyone else to be graphic with. Jeff was that friend for me." Jeff had been that friend for both of us, the one we could talk dirty to or go deep with, who kept our secrets and never judged us. He was the only person who knew how troubled Billy's marriage was and how hard he'd been trying to keep it together. "I didn't talk about that stuff to anyone except Jeff," he said. I nodded. The weight of our shared loss was immense. After that, Billy and I retreated into our separate sorrow. I bought a dress for Jeff's memorial service, then didn't go. Ignoring Billy's calls and messages offering to pick me up, I crawled into bed and slept until the next day. "I couldn't stand around and make chit-chat with people," I texted Billy a week later. "I'm sorry I wasn't there for you." I had abandoned Brooklyn for Maryland Beach, where I woke before dawn every morning and wept. My anguish would not be outrun. Our communication cooled with the fall weather. We didn't see each other again until New Year's Day, when we headed to Coney Island for the polar bear plunge. Jeff had always lobbied us to do it with him, and we had demurred. Now we ran into the ocean, shouting and laughing, dunking our heads and splashing until hypothermia threatened. Afterward, Billy accompanied me to my neighbor's open house, where we ate smoked fish and bagels. At some point, I lost track of him in the crowd, and when I spotted him across the room, chatting easily with my friends, a strange feeling came over me, like déjà vu, except flashing forward to a time when Billy and I would be more than friends. I pushed the thought away, but when we hugged goodbye, I felt it again. That winter, I ran away to Los Angeles, where a friend had offered her home in exchange for cat sitting. Wildfires had ravaged the city since I had been there with Jeff, and the jacarandas were no longer in bloom. I took long walks alone, skirting the edges of places we had been together when I had believed we had a future. On Valentine's Day, Billy texted with news that he and his wife were divorcing, and he was looking at apartments. He wondered how I was doing in Los Angeles. Was I lonely, or did I have friends there? And when was I coming home? I told him that while I had a couple of good friends nearby, I mostly wanted to be by myself, to write. Neither of us pointed out that I could write from anywhere. "Miss you," he wrote, genuinely. "Hope to hang when you get back." Wary of his recently separated status, I didn't reply. Once I was home, though, I relented and met him for lunch. As before, our conversation flowed freely, but this time I noticed his broad shoulders and dazzling smile. Standing at the top of the subway stairs, heading in different directions after lunch, I suppressed an impulse to kiss him. A few days later, Billy asked if I would be up for joining him on a thrifting tour of Connecticut in search of stuff for his new place. I said sure, then regretted it. I hate thrift stores, I told my Los Angeles bestie, Nicole. Do you think I can bail? Nicole was one of the few people who knew how much I had been secluding myself, brooding about Jeff. I know you don't want to hear this, she said, but I think you should go. And so, grudgingly, I met Billy early on a Sunday spring Saturday. We spent the day ducking in and out of thrift shops, lingering over lunch, and feeling, for the first time in months, light and happy. That night, after Billy was home in Queens, he thanked me for a wonderful day. I didn't want it to end, he texted. I'd rather be in Brooklyn with you right now. Come back, I replied impulsively. When Billy got to my apartment just before midnight, we started kissing before the door closed behind him. In the flush of those first feverish days when we weren't kissing, we were discovering all the things we had in common. Not only are we both Scorpios, we're both Sagittarius rising. I can hear Jeff, the astrology skeptic, scoffing. 2 theater majors, we have the same blood type and make the same dumb joke about it. A+, the best. As the months passed, Billy and I only fell deeper in love. We spoke of Jeff often, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing, often wondering, had he known? The last morning of Jeff's life, he had asked me how I felt about Billy. It might be good to have him here today, he said. What do you think? We had been going over his will, a task we knew we had little time to complete. Here's what I would later learn about Billy. He's the sort of person you pass babies to and they stop crying. He hates being written about, but folds my underwear into tiny suitcase-ready rectangles the night before I leave for a workshop in Paris, where he knows I'll write about him. When I lay my head on his chest, I'm home. I'd like that, I said to Jeff, before I knew any of that. He closed his eyes and smiled. Then we turned back to his list of who would get what after he was gone. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the July 5th issue of the New York Times Style section. Your reader has been Laura. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next, the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the USA Today. And then at 2 o'clock, with episode number 5 of We the Women by Nora O'Donnell. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, broadcasting daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading Studios are at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Radio Reading's website is nfradioreading.org. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555.
The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a